Wastewater treatment has to remove certain chemicals. It has to remove food particles, and these are generally carbohydrates, fats, oils, grease, proteins, other organic carbon-rich molecules that carry the energy that living things need. The other things we need to remove are the fertilizers, the limiting nutrients. The main ones are the nitrogen compounds, which come in proteins, nucleic acids, and the fertilizer runoff and other industrial compounds. The others are the phosphorus compounds that come in nucleic acid, fertilizer runoff, and the main source is detergent, soap. The last are sulfur compounds, which are mostly found in proteins. So, if algae are going to grow in the wastewater after you discharge it and cause algal blooms, why not grow the algae in the wastewater before you discharge it to remove the nutrients, and then when you're done, you have a product that's worth something. You get rid of the blooms in the environment, and you have something you can sell to somebody later, and you get clean water as a byproduct. And this is not anything new. There's a wastewater treatment plant in St. Helena, California. It was built in 1965. It has oxidation ponds with high-rate photosynthetic ponds, and so it takes the influent water, the raw sewage, partially treats it the traditional way with oxygen bubbling through, but then it polishes the water with algae. The settling pond takes out the sludge and some of the algae, then you chlorinate at the end and you discharge the cleaned up water. This plant is still in operation, and it's probably the most economic wastewater plant in the country. Another California wastewater plant in Delhi, California used an algae wastewater system. It had a 1.4 hectare pond running around the outside like a moat. And so the inside came the wastewater, it was treated, you had settling ponds, and you polished the water with the paddle wheels and algae before you discharged it, and they discharged it into the orchards. If you want to get more algae, you can also add CO2. So now do we not only clean up the water, we take CO2 out of the air. And from this picture you can see, in the control, where you're just bubbling normal air through, you can still see through the bottle, but where you're bubbling a CO2 enhanced solution through, you get a lot of CO2 taken out and many more nutrients removed. So the water is much cleaner and you have more algae at the end. So it may be that we want to put our sewer plants next to our power plants so we can take the CO2 out and clean it up at the same time. So what can we make from algae growing in wastewater? You can't make food because it's just not legal, and you can't make it as a food supplement. You can't feed it to the cows because it's in the food chain, so it can't go into the food chain. But you can make gas out of it. You can put it in an anaerobic digester and make methane and CO2, clean up the CO2, and basically you have the same natural gas that comes out of your pipeline. You can make biocrude, which is basically oil that can be cracked into gasoline like any other crude oil that comes out of the ground. Biodiesel, you make oil into biodiesel and run your trucks on it. We make plastic. You can make several specialty chemicals, acetone, butanol, ethanol, methanol, any of those that we might need. It can be cleaned up and the protein can be taken out and used as aquaculture and agricultural feed, but not the whole algae. And then you can get phycocyanin products that are the pigments that are very, very expensive and worth a whole lot of money. So if you take your algae out of the wastewater and break it up and separate out into several of these, you actually have a valuable system. You've cleaned up the water and you charge the people for cleaning up the water. So if you look at the cost of cleaning up wastewater by these systems, algae systems are clearly more cost effective. If you look at the advanced oxygen nutrient removal systems, it costs nearly $1 million a year for 1 million gallons of treated wastewater. The traditional activated sludge secondary plant costs about $600,000 a year per 1 million gallons of treated wastewater. Whereas if you use a seasonal algae nitrogen removal system, it doesn't work so well in the winter when it's too cold for the algae to grow, it costs about $300,000 a year per 1 million gallons treated. But if you look at the greenhouse gases that are created by each system, algae systems clearly win. They produce a whole bunch of electricity, but if you look at the purple bar, they're a net carbon sink. More carbon goes into the plant than gets put out.